So, hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of weekly workspace on writing, on project management, on everything surrounding books, book publishing. One difference today, besides your chat comments, you can also join a Twitter space. That's first for today or for this week. And you can also ask your questions directly or just write them in the chat and I will address them. Just setting up and waiting for a few more people and then we'll start. So today I have to set up a few things here for the Twitter space. Today the focus will be about design thinking, meaning the situation where you really start out a book. So last time, or the last few times, I mean, that's I think the fifth or fourth session, we did talk about organizing your work in with tools, with editors like Overleaf, and having a template where you just copy your text and have your book. And we talked about how to work with your editor or with another person, how to prepare your stuff. And we talked about rules of your book. So how you really set up a style book or a style guide for yourself or for your editor to really have a consistent message throughout your book so that you don't change from chapter to chapter. And we also talked about how you like organize your chapter, how your chapters, how you organize your books. So that's all we already did the last few times. So that's basically the basic organization, and also, for example, that you surround your book like with your central premise, your central climactic point, and work backwards and forwards. You can watch all these in the linked streams on my YouTube channel, and you can simply watch it later. For each of those, I also created a blog post. So if you prefer to simply read about it, just click on the links there. So I linked in the video description. I linked them all there. And if you're on Twitter, in Twitter Spaces, I will also link the YouTube space and the blog page there. So if you want to look for me on YouTube, I have several YouTube channels, but mainly two. One English channel, this is this one, Clemens Load, and another German one, Clemens Load, more on science. Okay, so what is it today about outlining and researching and design thinking? So we already established last time that it would be great to have like a rule book about your book. So a central theme, a central style, and it doesn't matter if it's a fiction book or a non-fiction book. You need to have a certain guideline. And what helps, of course, is also if you made some research, of course, in front before you start out, because if you only do it at a later point, you might run into a problem like you wrote half your book and then you did some more research and then you have to revise, etc., etc. So there are some ways people thought up about basically improving your project management approach. So yes, you will start out writing a book with an idea, and you type a few pages, and then you run into an obstacle, and then you leave it for a few weeks, and then you start again, and then maybe you start at another point, and then you pile up with pages and pages and pages, but you kind of lose structure. And then what we also talked about the last few times, you might end up writing a book that nobody will read. So you also have to find out, okay, how do I relate that to an audience? And then it becomes really a mess. So the goal should here be how to improve this, well, mess, ideally at the beginning and not like later in the game where you say, okay, now please, editor, I've written this book, now make it perfect. So now you should think about who to write this book for very early, ideally as early as possible. And this will also very much depend on how you will manage your book. So this is all, well, we can talk about blah, 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 blah. Let's talk about the specifics. And for the specifics, I would like to share a tool. I mean, there are many tools like that. I will just share this one. One moment. Let's see if this works. So this should work, yeah. So this is one of many whiteboards. It's simply an empty space where we can work our ideas. And I mean, whatever book you want to write, I mean, it's usually not like, okay, you get a mail in the letter and, okay, write a book. You need to write a book or something like that. But you usually start out with an idea. And so we can already start organizing our basic idea and just add here, okay, what are our initial ideas? And this is basically just brainstorming. So just what you have in mind. Do you want to write about this, about that, or etc.? This is basically just to get your mind empty and put it all here on the page and just write. For example, I still want to write a science fiction novel. And it should be about a planet in the solar system, let's say about Venus. And there should be some mystery. And maybe because I read something about it, I want to write about consciousness and maybe about life on Venus or something like that. And then those are already some ideas I have in my mind. That's great. So this is just your initial idea, but that's of course not enough, because you also have to think about, will this even sell? Is this even something people want to read about? And do you even know what this is about? Do you know about planet Venus? What about life on Venus? Do you know about that? And also, what's the appeal of it? I mean, what's the emotional element about it? If it's a fiction book, of course. If it's a non-fiction book, is for example, let's add that. For example, let's just use this one. How to write a book. That's my second idea. I want to write about how to write a book. It's not very well creative, but here also, I mean, that's a central idea, and maybe let's add a spin on it. I want to give a to Z walkthrough, how to publish a book, and I want to warn people about mistakes I made, and maybe I also want to connect with people. So maybe those are just random ideas that just came to my mind. And now the challenge, I mean, that's just the entry ticket. And now my challenge is, of course, is this really something people want to read about? Because I think we can all agree, even if your goal of the book is, I don't know, to change the world, to make people aware of an issue, or if it's career related, so if you want to advertise your services, or if it's about, well, even if it's about making money or something like that, or if it's about advertising your other books, The goal in the end is, of course, to sell a lot of books. So you should aim for something that people will actually read. So this is basically your view of the world, and this is something you could get behind and you can get motivated. During the course of our research, I mean, here's still a lot of space, we will end up maybe with a different idea, maybe a different type of novel, or maybe we will find out that people actually already know about that and don't need help, and maybe they just need help with how to stay motivated throughout the book. I mean, throughout writing their book. Maybe that's the issue. So you don't know at this point yet. So this is just your subjective view. Maybe let's add that here. Your subjective view. So, and you will then go. I mean, then you have different options. The first question you have to ask is what you will be creating, is that something completely new? Is this something that wasn't there yet? Of course, every story is unique. Every book is unique, no matter about what you write, because you are unique. So your book will be unique, sure. But usually you write, for example, for a specific genre. If you write a fiction book, of course, or if you write a technical book, you usually write about something that isn't like that special. Sure, it's your personal experience or so, but the format really is similar to what's already on the market. So in that regard, it's not something completely new. So you probably won't need to do research in terms of, okay, I need to try out if that could really work. So if it's a completely new thing, a completely new, for example, I mean, we see it in movies or something, like a completely new type of movie. I don't know, something years back, like with the handheld camera with really low budget format or something, like with I think it was Blair Witch Project or something. It's completely new, so you would really think, okay, I have to approach it differently. But if you approach it in a way that, okay, something like that already exists, there are already books about how to write something, or how to fix something, or how to become rich, or how to become famous, or how to be a better person, or how to be happy. There are already such books out there. And similarly, there are also a lot of science fiction novels out there that deal with planets, that deal with the science of it. And based on that, you can wait one moment. You can already do research. So what we really want to do at this point is to understand what is going on the market. And that is both in terms of both we want to research, okay, what does the understanding the market, what does the, it's a little bit small, maybe I can, does it work? Yeah, it works. Maybe we can start understanding the market. Maybe let's put this here. I mean, the simplest one would be simply to read the competition, read what's already out there, and research. I mean, I put out 5 example points here. Research what's already out there. What science fiction novels are out there. Just get an overview. Obviously, or probably, if you are out to want to write about something like that, you probably have read a lot about it, but maybe you stopped reading about it, or stopped reading science fiction novels for a while. Get updated what's currently out there, and especially what are the bestsellers. What do people like to read? Maybe they like to read about space travel, or they like more the science fiction stuff of it, or they like more the hard science stuff of it. What's popular? What's really people what you have basically you have to answer the question, why do people want to read your book, or why do people want to read a specific science fiction novel? And the better you know it, the more you can write for that audience. So maybe it's a political issue. So, I mean, science fiction is often about reflecting on the present using science fiction terms. But maybe others, they really want to know about the technology and think about future technologies and how future technologies might affect our present. So that is the big point of research you can already do here without even having written the whole thing. Of course, again, a note of caution, or a note if you're a new writer and if it's really your very first book, this also applies to you, but you probably have like an urge to, okay, I don't want rules, I don't want to fill out forms and do research, I want to write, I have an idea and I'm super convinced I can do this. Yes, and that is good, because you can then get a lot of experience, because your book will probably not sell. Well, it could sell if you're lucky, but the chances are that it won't sell. And but you will get a lot of experience, and you will get all this pressure out of you to really have to write this story. And it's a lot of exercise, and it's best for each new project or each new product to not make too many new things, like a new way of approaching things, like a new project management method, or a new medium, like you switch from softcover books to internet blogs or to ebook. That's one step, and not to make too many changes. And of course, if you're just starting out, you're making many changes because you haven't had any product yet, so you're discovering new territory. Completely new territory, and you first have to gain experience in each of these territories. I mean, ebooks are a little bit different than softcover books. Different genres are different. You have a different audience. Then maybe a different length of a book. It needs to be approached differently, or a different style of a book, like from a different perspective. And of course, fiction and non-fiction books are different. So don't make a too large of a jump and then be disappointed. Aim for experience, and if it's something completely new you're writing, just expect, okay, it's a book I'm writing for myself. But let's assume you already written a few books and you're looking for new ways of exploring the market and be a little bit more successful, hitting more marks when dealing with readers and writing for them. Okay, so again, we do the research here. So we just covered this one. Then, of course, maybe you, as we thought about earlier about writing a rule book, you want to, for science fiction especially, you want to have the science right. Maybe you write a historical novel, you want to have the history right. Or you want to write a mystery novel or a fantasy novel. Sure, you still have some rules, like how certain magic artifacts work. For example, you have a cloak of invisibility. So think about, okay, how would this cloak work? So you basically limit yourself for your writing, and this also creates creativity. So here means, okay, reading about science, history, etc. So you might have already done that. That's great. Then that's already covered. But maybe take a refresh course. Maybe if you do hard science, read about a few studies in the last few years about here, planet Venus, what was happening there, what's the current view of scientists about the topic, especially here, because I focused here more about that. Focus about what studies have been done on life on Venus, or if it's a historical thing, look at different perspectives about this time period. and find out what's going on. So you read your competition, you checked out what's out there, you thought about your rules, you checked up about your background knowledge on science and history, and here I wrote additional about consciousness. That would be another one for the scientific research here, and a specific one, Life on Venus, maybe some news articles you could relate to, and then you have a basic understanding what's going on. Same for, of course, for non-fiction books, and one moment. Same for non-fiction books. Here you should also research, okay, what's your competition out there? How do they write? What's their writing style? You often have like people telling stories about their life. Maybe that is important. So you take notes and take notes and take notes. And with all those notes, you will also find like a number of open questions, like for example, or open points where you simply say, okay, that's something I still have to do. For example, if you write a nonfiction book, so maybe your research shows successful authors write about their own life, personal stories, and emotional moments in their endeavor, whatever this was, etc. So this is simply what you found out, and then you go into the next stage, and this is you can either do this already in research or in the next stage. Here it really depends on if it's something completely new or if it's something existent. So before I go here deeper, here you just research your competition, but other people already research your competition as well, and that is simply all the readers of those books. And the real treasure trove for that is simply the reviews. So simply go through all the reviews, especially the bad ones. Well, I mean, don't let them like direct your flow, but really take that information and evaluate that if it's just an unhappy reader or if it's real criticism that really applies. This is, of course, easier to do if you have read the book yourself, but you can also just read the reviews and summary of a book and then note down all those negative reviews where people give basically the reader or other the writer or other writers valuable advice. So maybe it was a slow book, or it was too long, or it was not detailed enough, or maybe the author got the science not right. And you find a lot of things, and what you have to look out for if maybe the author advertised their book wrong to the wrong audience. So maybe it was a book about hard science, about really scientific stuff, and maybe the cover was like that and it was advertised like that, and it didn't contain any of it. Maybe it was a great story, but it gets a lot of negative reviews because those really who wanted to read the book because of all the science, they were not happy with it. So they dismissed it, even if the book was great. So really the targeting is relevant. So think about also here the target audience of your competitors and how they write for them. Same for non-fiction books, of course, as well. And then gather reviews, read a lot of reviews, especially the negative ones. Because usually the negative ones are usually a lot more valuable. I mean, if you get like a review comment that says, okay, hey, this book, yeah, it was nice, thanks. That doesn't help you, but a negative one usually details what it is about. The other thing you can do is observe. So this is just a little bit more difficult, especially with books. This is easier, for example, if you can. I mean, reading a book is usually a solitary hobby, but maybe you can join a book club or something like that. Join a book club or engage in discussions or read discussions online about a book. And really to really get a feeling what is really driving people there. What's really going on? Why do they really like a certain type of movie or book or story? And this is a little bit more deeper than just researching like reviews, but really engaging maybe a little bit in the discussion and reading a little bit back and forth. Maybe also watching like reviews. This is more for movies, but there's also some book reviews. I mean, this goes from here to here, so it's a little bit goes here over here. In design thinking, usually this is more prevalent if it's really a thing that can be used. So here we can, of course, better observe the situation. For example, if you think about improving a coffee, an automatic, how's it called, coffee in a coffee shop, how the processes go and how people wait or so. And if your product idea is to build a better coffee shop, then you just sit in a coffee shop of your competitor and order a coffee and then observe the customers, how they react. Maybe they become impatient and make notes and gather information. Of course, for books, it's a little bit more difficult because you can't really get between the reader, the eyes and the book. So that is a little bit more difficult. So one way really is to engage in those discussions. Based on that, I mean, you probably get a lot information here about what your market is about, what people want to read, what they aim to read, what they don't like, what they like about the genre, or about the specific thing here. And you will notice two things. First, it might be too much. So you're getting overwhelmed with the information. And maybe this is a point where you say, maybe I should be more precise about my idea. So maybe you focus your research on a smaller niche. So you don't say, okay, I want to write a science fiction novel, but maybe focus on a specific subgenre and maybe do market research. Okay, these are the top 5 science fiction genres, and maybe you pick one of them and not and already limit yourself so that you have less to do during research. That's the one thing. The other thing, all the questions, I mean, you will find here questions that you cannot answer. So that is one thing to look out, because it's easy. It's easy to say, yeah, well, I know the answer. I'm the expert or something like that. But really be honest to yourself here and think about, okay, this is something. Yeah, I could write an answer to this question, but I really need additional input. So, for example, what would it be? Okay. Are people really interested in life on Venus? I mean, it's my favorite topic, but are people really interested in that? And what would I have to know about the market, about other people to answer that question? Or what exactly are people interested about the possibility life on other planets, or is it more about the scientific background, Or is it maybe about the religious aspects of having life outside the Earth? So those are already 3 questions that I couldn't answer myself. I mean, I'm interested in all of them, but really, what is the market interest in them? And it all sounds, here again, a note between it all sounds like, okay, I need to write according to the market. Well, yes, if you want to sell more books, if you want more readers, and maybe in a future book you can explore another niche of that. But right now you're looking for one that is valuable for you. Okay, so to sum up, there are open questions that you will have here by researching. So these ones you gather in the basically it's also called interview, where you say, okay, I really have to gather open questions and maybe put them in an interview format where you say, okay, maybe I can find some people who are more knowledgeable in that field, have read more books. Maybe I ask them, or maybe use that to focus your research. And maybe also by coming up with these questions, maybe also self-reflect. So is this really something then that you want to write about? And this is also here, of course, at Observe, and this is also here while doing research. So because you want to, of course, at the end of the whole process, you want to come up with a single story. You don't want to write 100 books. You want to write a single story. So during that whole process of here generating or having here some initial ideas, researching, observing, etc., you want also to throw ideas out and say, okay, this might be something interesting to research or write about in the future, but maybe the market demand isn't there very much. Maybe people don't want to read about life on Venus or something like that, so I discard that idea for now. Or you find that maybe people are more interested in consciousness or in this or in that. So you refine your basic ideas, your brainstorming ideas during that process also. I mean, you have written them down, you can pick them up later, but really have some focus during the thing. And it culminates here in some sort of interview where you say, okay, I've done enough research, I have read the reviews, I have observed people, maybe I have joined some forum discussions, but maybe there are some questions that I cannot answer yet. Maybe I have to do additional measures to find out what are people interested in. So this is and depending on the amount of questions, this gives you two things. Firstly, maybe you haven't read enough competitor books yourself, so that could be an issue because that would already answer your question. And the second one would be, okay, the big question would be, okay, how do you get that information? And maybe because you have so many questions at this point, maybe you're deviating too much from the standard genre. So maybe you really want to do something new. In other words, so here's a basic decision. Do you want to write something completely new? Or do you want to align more with a genre, an existing genre? The point is, if you, the point is, people really like to read an existing genre. So if they buy a book about a fantasy medieval world, then they expect something like Lord of the Rings. So you can't deviate much from it. It might be more creative, but you will you will not meet then the people's expectations or the readers' expectations. They expect something like Lord of the Rings, so you write something similar. It's not very creative, but that's what people want to read. And so if you have too many open questions here, you have to ask yourself, do you really want to deviate too much from the existing genres? Because that might actually hurt your sales and maybe hurt the expectations and ultimately of your readers and ultimately drive them away. So if you have too many questions here, you either say, okay, I have gone too far and that is a too creative approach. I have to go back to the basics and maybe write more, align my ideas more with the market. Or you say, okay, I am convinced about those points. I have to test them somehow. So those are two options. Because here you have not enough information because there's not enough competitors where you can say, okay, I can learn from others. And so, if there are too many open questions. So if there are too many open questions, so you have to do additional research. Right. So, okay, I start again. Here. So the basic decision, if there are too many open questions, drop some of your ideas and align more with an existing genre. I mean, that is one point. Or you actually do the additional research, do interviews, write short stories, tell people short stories, explain them the idea, watch their reaction, ask them questions, etc., etc. So here you actually have to do research with the readers, while here you say, okay, based on my research on the vast and successful competition, I don't think I can create something completely new, which is completely fine. I mean, people want to hear or listen to similar songs, or they want to read similar stories because they feel comfortable in them and they feel okay, they meet their expectations and they're happy when the story goes as they expected. But of course, some people say, I want to write something completely new, and here they have to do research. So you have to make the decision here. Do you like cut your expenses of time you did there, and align your ideas more to an existing genre? So maybe out of my science fiction novel about the planet Venus, about consciousness and life on Venus, maybe it will be a more contemporary story on Earth in the present, but only about consciousness, because people don't want to read about space travel. Could be, maybe that is something. So, or you say, no, I will try it, but I will write a few short stories, send them out, see what people tell me about it, ask questions about why do they want to read about science fiction stories? Do they read it because they want to learn about planets, about technology, etc.? So you have to do your research. Okay, and that is already a little bit goes a little bit over here into the next one, and that is called. So I'm here again. I call this one design thinking, but it is a little bit adapted to book writing, because the process is a little bit different, because we are not really creating something completely new. Okay. Here, the next one is ideate. Maybe in the terms of book writing, that would be short stories, or it would be a list of elements. This is something I want to do in a separate workshop. There is a great set of cards that asks you 50 questions about your about the story you want to write or about the style of the book you're writing. For example, also, is there a special device in the game? If it's a fantasy or science fiction story, is there a special device in the game, in the book, that gives the hero a special power, like a special technology or a magical item, like a cloak of invisibility or something like that? Then what are the rules of your book? Then what are the main characters? So it basically asks you 50 questions, and based on those 50 questions, you can fill in ideas and already have something. And based on that something, again, it's a kind of a brainstorming. You build like test balloons, test stories, test little test books or test articles or something like that, and to see what's the reaction, what can you get out of readers in that regard, and really test the market a bit, because you already tested the market here back while researching and observing the readers, but here really with short stories, articles, etc., you can test the market. Test the market. And this can then be used then for creating a prototype. So that would then really be the maybe let's put this over here. For book writing, make a list of ideas. For example, special powers, special technology, world building, like describing the world, or for non-fiction, fiction, write down maybe a plot that you will use, or like stories from your own life, etc. So lots of ideas that you maybe gathered here during research or so. Here's the time to really compile them. And there are, as I said, there are different formats. I can add a link to that set of cards where I added. That's from a company that asks you basically 50 questions around to sort that list of ideas. Okay, and based on that big, huge bag of ideas, maybe you already had, maybe in previously you already started with ideas, and already have like a big box of ideas. And now is the time to sort them and to organize them a bit based on your research, on your interviews, on your observations, on the market research, and what you did there. And then it's time for prototypes. So short stories, articles, basically to test the market, to get direct feedback, maybe to improve your plot line, etc. And here, of course, it can be that, okay, you learn something and you have to go back. Same with, okay, while working or while interviewing, okay, maybe your original idea is not very, very good. You have to go back and maybe research a different part of the market. So, or you observe something different. So there's always like an iterative approach where you build a prototype, write a short story, and you get a negative feedback, and then you think about, okay, maybe I should do another interview, or maybe I interview the reader or gather there some feedback and write some new ideas or throw some ideas out, etc. So there's some going back and forth. So in venue, of course, here they put it as another column. So you actually run a test. So you have find test readers and have them read your story and gather feedback and refine your ideas, etc. Then you go back here from the test back to idea or to interview and refine your prototype, make another test, etc., until you're pretty much confident that that's the way to go. And at this point, you're sure about, okay, in which direction do you want to go? What is the market demand? And then you're confident, and then it's really time to go forward and write the book, basically. Write a book, so product. That being said, you can approach this. I mean, it depends. It depends on how much time it takes here. This can be a long time. I mean, it can be that this takes years to research, etc. So you have to ask yourself the question: how much time do you want to invest in the whole thing, and how much worth is here all the research you're doing and the idea and finding different ideas. So it's one approach. I just want to compare it with another approach. Then I think we're done for today. Just checking here. Okay. Then I think we're done here for today. The alternative would be, of course, and that's what some people do, is if you're already a successful author in a certain genre, just again write for the same genre again. I mean, sure, you will do, of course, for a new book, maybe additional research for a different setting or something like that, or a different time period. And you might do some research if that different time period might be appealing, or maybe you stay in the same time period and just write a similar story, and your readers might already like that. Then you don't need design thinking. Design thinking is more if you're unsure about the market, if you're not sure where to go. So if you're really reaching out into a new market and really first have to do the research, what is this market about, what do people want to read, how do people read it, what are their emotional response, what do they like about it, what they don't like about it, etc., etc. And if you already have a running business, basically, you don't need to do that with every new book, because you can already rely on a lot of known assumptions, and the market you're looking at is not like an unknown market, but is very, very well known to you, and you already know exactly what sells and what doesn't. Similarly, some authors simply say, okay, that is all true here. There's a lot here that can be learned upfront. But I'm so new to this, I'm a new writer, there are so many other factors I still have to learn. So I might, even if I get all this right with the research and observation, interview, etc., if I get all this right, there are still 1,000 other things like the technical aspects, the marketing aspects, how to promote your book, how to even print your book, how to bring it to other readers, how to use social media, etc., etc. Maybe then the best thing is maybe, okay, I skip that half year of research, I just write my short story. And so I skip all that planning, etc. I just write my short story and test it by putting it on my blog and giving it out to my friends and asking for feedback. I mean, that is also possible. You will still learn a lot. You will might not hit the right spots, but you will hear at this point. But by having that prototype and that test very early, you might get certain valuable information much earlier. That could also be an option. So you might get, for example, the feedback, oh, I don't think that writing is your thing. You need a lot more practice in like expressing your expressing emotions or so, because all the writing skill wasn't here. I mean, we only talked about ideas, about what people want, etc. But of course, there's also the technical aspects, the really manual labor of technically bringing your thoughts on paper. So maybe that is the issue, and maybe that's something you first have to write about. And if you follow design thinking to write such a book, and then notice only here after the prototype, after half a year of research, that maybe your English isn't so good. So maybe you should first write a number of stories in English, and maybe do some get some help with that, with getting your English better and getting better in expressing emotions and how to write and writing styles, etc. So maybe that is a better time investment at this point. So the second aspect or the second approach is the agile method, where you say, okay, in 2 weeks, I write a blog article and just test the market, test my ability, and see what type of feedback I get. So at this point, I absolutely know, because I didn't do any of this, or just on the side, this research, I already know that this won't be a perfect story, but maybe your friend reads it and, well, they say, this could be better, and that could be better, and this, and this, and this. So maybe this direct approach would help you more than doing all that research. You have to decide at this point for yourself if you want first maybe test your basic abilities to write, or how book writing even works, before you put out basically the big guns and say, okay, I will do the entire research, and then I already know which market to address to, and then do the prototype and then do the testing. So these are two different approaches: design thinking with some upfront planning, basically upfront research, and the more test focused. If you just say in the agile product in the agile project management, you start out with the prototype, you just write your story, test it, have people read it, and see what they give you as a feedback. And in these two, you have to decide. Maybe you can also combine them. So you write a few stories and see, does it work? Or if you start out with writing books, okay, you just put up a test print and see how does the test print work. What can you learn from that? Do people really want to read books anymore, or do they want to read ebooks? Because that could also be an issue. Like, you already had all this story here, and you wrote the perfect book for people to take with them to sit on the beach, and then it turns out they only want to read it as ebooks, and they don't read ebooks on the beach. I mean, that would be like a catastrophe if you find it out here at the very end of your process that, yes, you wrote a perfect story for the beach, but you selected the wrong format, and then you have to redesign the book, etc., etc. So here the ultimate question is, how good do you know your customers? How good do you know how they will use your product? How good do you know the technology? And depending on those answers, you select the right product, the right project management method. So design thinking, or the more agile method, where you say, okay, I just write and test it as soon as possible to see, does the final product, does the prototype even work? Do people even want to take it and read it on the beach? In that regard, thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments, please write them in the chat. Otherwise, also thank you in the Twitter space for listening. And in the next next Sunday, we will look at those. We will look more closely here at how to organize your ideas here in this phase, in the ideate phase, especially for fiction stories, but also I will also always comment on non-fiction books and how to organize them a bit. Non-fiction books are generally easier to organize, but they also should have some sort of plot, simply to keep the reader interested. Contents of this stream will also be part of a blog post. I will post that later this week. And otherwise, if you want to know more about it, you can also check out the many blog posts on my website. Oops. On my website on load.de. One moment. Yeah. Zip. No. There we go. So loaded.de, and here in the blog I have a lot of different blog articles on writing, on consciousness, on science. You can check those out. You can also here rate the website. That being said, thank you for listening, and we will see us again in 1 week, next Sunday, same time. And yeah, have a good start into the new week and stay safe. Bye.